Well, good morning, Wareham. It is Friday, September 20th. Guess who is coming back today? Your favorite Russian, Nadia Karitnikova. Anyhow, we have a fantastic show here today. The news headlines, the weather report, and today in history. This morning, we're going to be discussing fall town meeting warrants and also casino, the potential casino coming to Wareham. All this and more with Alan Slavin, our selectman. And also today, learn about the facts on bugs that bug you. This was a discussion at Town Hall on Wednesday regarding bugs that bug you from Blake Dinius, an entomologist extension educator. And also, Living Broken, a life with osteogenesis imperfecta. But first, I would like to take this moment to thank Not Your Average Antiques, an antique shop down Cranberry Highway in East Wareham, for donating the props that you see in the morning show. So stay tuned because the weather and the news headlines are next. Okay, mostly sunny skies today. High at 79, clear skies tonight with low at 58. Tomorrow sunny, high near 80 degrees and low near 60. Sunny Sunday, high at 77 and low at 63. So it's going to be a fantastic weekend. I do not know if there's any football this Sunday. Is there any football this Sunday?
Yes, 1 o'clock.
Okay, good for you all watching football at 1 o'clock this Sunday. Anyhow, there were plenty of news stories, and coming up are the news headlines. So Wareham Week had the following stories. We're going to start with the two liquors which were cited for selling alcohol to minors during a board selectmen meeting. Well, not during the board selectmen meeting. They were cited at the board selectmen meeting. This was the first time that Wareham Liquors and Liquor Locker were cited under current ownership. The board agreed unanimously to suspend Wareham Liquors and Liquor Locker's license for 2 days in the middle of the week. This is on October 1st and October 2nd. Wareham Liquors must be closed with a sign outside explaining why they are closed. And also, checking out museums is great, but what is even better is attending them at a reduced cost. The Wareham Free Library will be offering museum passes for museums such as the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, the Cape Cod Children's Museum in Mashpee, the New Bedford Whirling Museum, the New England Aquarium in Boston, and Plymouth Plantation, in addition to the Roger Williams Park Zoo in Providence. Museum passes may be checked out to an adult sales library card in good standing, and the library card must be presented at the time of checkout. Only one pass may be checked out at a time. Museum passes may be preserved for up to 1 month in advance. Well, reserved for up to 1 month in advance. To reserve a pass, you can visit the Wareham Free Library or just call them. Anyhow, the Friends of the Wareham Free Library is hosting another book sale this week. The sale will include gently used books for all ages and across genres, and will be held at the meeting room at the Wareham Free Library at 59 Marion Road. Contact the library to get the full book sale schedule, and you can also find the entire book sale schedule on Wareham Week newspaper. And those at town meeting will be able to support new places for kids to play this fall, as a new playground for Shangri-La and new fields for the Wareham Youth Soccer Club have requested community preservation funds. The soccer club is hoping to create 5 new soccer fields located on the Westfield property of Charlotte Furnace Road in West Wareham. Community Preservation Committee Chair Sandy Slavin pointed out that the project is in line with CPC's history as one of the first projects funded with community preservation funds was drilling a well and installing irrigation at Westfield. The second project that could receive funding is a new playground for the Shangri-La neighborhood located at 10 Peaceful Lane. The selectmen voted unanimously to recommend the approval of both projects. And Wicked Local Wareham had the following stories. Residents of Wareham, Marion, and Carver may be looking at $125 of sticker fee to use the 2 transfer stations in the refuse district starting next year, January 2020. The Carver, Marion, Wareham Regional Refuse Disposal District Board discussed how to handle the cost of running the sites and what the cost may be. The board is also faced with the uncertainty that with an unexpected cost of $1.6 million to run the facilities, the $125 per sticker fee will not only reduce the number of customers, but may not be enough to cover operating costs for the sites. Instead, the board is considering raising the fee to up to $300 per sticker by 2021. And a one-year moratorium on social cannabis cafes, a subject still being weighed at the Massachusetts State House, was recommended for approval by the Board of Selectmen for fall town meeting. The moratorium recommended by the Board of Selectmen for town meeting voters will allow the town to buy time while they determine and when and how they want to incorporate social cafes into our zoning laws. So that's all for today's news headlines. We're going to take a brief break, and when we come back, we'll continue with more. And now to the bugs that bug you presentation. This presentation took place on Wednesday at the Wareham Town Hall Auditorium downstairs. And it was open for the public to come to learn the facts, not assumptions, not rumors, facts about the bugs that bug you. Here's a little bit about the presentation. We're here today at the Wareham Town Hall to learn about the bugs that bug you. We're not talking about your enemies, your annoying neighbors, annoying friends. These are serious bugs, right?
Yeah, they're definitely serious and they pose a risk to our health. But when I put together this presentation, I was hoping to cover a lot of things: ticks, mosquitoes, and any other things that people might have questions on, kissing bugs.
So tell me why this discussion is very important.
It's particularly important. I would say it's important every single year just based on the area that we live in. We're always going to have an issue with ticks. That's kind of one of those things. In the Northeast, we're always going to have issues with ticks. When it comes to mosquitoes, things tend to be a little bit more cyclical, but we still have a few really serious mosquito-borne diseases that we need to worry about. This time of year, things are I don't want to say going away, but they're kind of starting to slow down. And so, but I think although there's been a lot of hype about these, so at least while we have people's attention, I think it's really important to discuss this. But I would definitely recommend that going forward, especially until next year, where I do suspect that we will still be dealing with mosquito-borne diseases, and we'll of course have tick-borne diseases, which we do every year, that people still stay vigilant. And I'm happy to review any of these topics with them next year as well.
Apart from general information, do you have a message that you want to push during today's presentation?
As far as a message or anything, not necessarily. I would say that what I'm here to do today is deliver science, and I would recommend that people trust science and facts rather than something that they view on Facebook or through a friend. I want them to really be thinking about, where is this information coming from? Is it a trusted source? I would say that that's probably the biggest message, because that's the stuff that we can rely on to keep us safe.
So in terms of misinformation, what are some things in your profession, in your experience, you have seen people do or mistake for accurate information?
There's too much to review.
Yeah.
There's more misinformation than there is fact, and even if we talk facts, I mean, I'm going to be here talking for close to an hour, and I still won't cover everything. So there's a lot to know. Just general rule of thumb, like I said, just make sure you're looking at, if someone says something that seems kind of funky, just say, okay, you don't have to be confrontational, but what is the source to back that up? Where's the science? Where's the data on this? I think is just a good habit for people to have.
Okay. So in our region here, any particular ticks, bugs that are more prevalent and that key information that we need to be aware of?
Definitely. In this area in Wareham, I see a lot of deer ticks, black-legged ticks. I see a few, in certain parts, wood ticks or what they call American dog ticks. And I suspect that Wareham may be one of the first towns in Plymouth County to see Lone Star tick. We haven't really seen too much Lone Star tick activity in Plymouth County. A few cases here and there, but no established populations. And I do suspect that since we see Lone Star in Barnstable County and also in Bristol County, that Wareham might be one of those first towns to see that. We're also seeing a lot of, like we mentioned, triple E risk here in Wareham for sure, and that has a lot to do with the kind of the way the region is. There's a lot of swampy areas. There's a really good environment for breeding the mosquitoes that tend to either carry triple E naturally in these what they call enzootic cycles, or be a bridge vector and be able to transfer that triple E from their natural hosts, which are birds, into people. And so there's basically a perfect storm kind of going on with Wareham in terms of that. This is also an area where I believe we do see the Asian tiger mosquito as well. That's an invasive mosquito that can transmit a few different diseases. And so we see a lot of really interesting things going on in Wareham. Definitely a good town for people to stay vigilant.
So in terms of staying vigilant, precautions, apart from using bug spray, what else can people do?
So even when using bug spray, I would definitely recommend that people look for an EPA registration number on that bug spray. I know that all naturals are really big now, but the important thing about the all naturals is that they haven't been tested yet for safety or efficacy, which means they might not work and they may actually be dangerous. We don't actually know. But if something has an EPA registration number, and you can find this on the bottle, doesn't matter what that number is, as long as it exists on the bottle, that means that it has been tested. There are data that show that when that thing says it repels ticks and mosquitoes, it actually repels ticks and mosquitoes. And so that's a really important thing in regards to use of bug spray. I would definitely recommend that people would, for ticks at least, that treat their clothing with permethrin. And for both ticks and mosquitoes, try to work on reducing the habitats in their yards. Most mosquitoes don't fly very far from where they're born. There are a few that fly a couple miles. Most of them fly less than a mile. Ticks, you can really reduce the number of ticks you find in your backyard by changing the habitat. And these things are going to include reducing standing water, looking for areas around your yard like bird baths, cleaning out gutters. And for ticks, raking leaves now as opposed to later is going to be really critical, because ticks will actually use leaves to survive the winter. And so that's a really good, just kind of maintaining a well-kept lawn is really beneficial to keeping both mosquitoes and ticks out of your yard.
Okay, and also to protect your animals too.
Yeah, definitely. You want to protect your animals. Not only are animals basically our family, I would hope that our pets are part of people's family, right? But they can actually serve as Trojan horses in the case of ticks. Like, especially in the winter, you may have your dog, you let Sparky outside, Sparky comes back in with some ticks, and you said, oh, I never even went outside. How do I have Lyme disease? I mean, it can happen, and it has happened.
Now, how many other towns have you been presenting this discussion, this talk?
This particular talk is covering both ticks and mosquitoes. This is the first time I'll be covering it. I've given the tick-only presentation. I gave about 100 of them last year, and I haven't counted this year, but I'm hoping to beat that record this year.
Very good. And through presenting, do you feel like people are listening, people are correcting themselves, or they will always remain stubborn?
I'm hopeful. That's all I have to say. I've been really interested in tracking that data, but unfortunately, unless I can get people to fill out surveys or fill out questionnaires or email me and let me know, oh, you saved my life, you're magic, I listened to your talk and I'm totally changed. Like, unless I get that coming in, then I really don't know too much whether or not it's having an impact. But I'm hopeful, just because I do get emails every now and then, people saying, hey, listen to your talk, I told my family, now we haven't been bit by a tick ever since. And so I do feel like at least I'm reaching some people. I would like to know quantitatively if that's reaching more people, though.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Queen.
So the Bugs That Bug You is brought to you through the collaboration of the Wareham Land Trust and the Wareham Board of Health. With me is a member from the Wareham Land Trust. Tell us...
I'm Bob Gleason, yep.
So tell me what you're looking forward towards today's presentation, what you want to hear.
Well, what we want to hear is how bugs affect everybody in the town, and it's basically an education to keep everybody knowledgeable about what they should do to prevent diseases like you've heard about so much recently, Triple E, or obviously with the Lyme disease and all that, and a variety of other diseases. And this is a good opportunity for anybody in town to come learn from the experts about what's going to help them to prevent getting any diseases. So.
Now tell me a little bit about the Wareham Land Trust connection to this presentation here today.
Well, we have a few different organizations helping us out here, including the town of Wareham and the Board of Health. And the Wareham Land Trust is a organization that tries to get people to go outdoors and use the various trails we have, or get knowledgeable with the beaches and the trails, and just have fun outdoors. And in order to do that, you want to be in a safe place too. So
now, with
protecting yourself from bugs is an important thing.
It is an important thing, and especially with this summer with the Triple E virus, the scare that's going on. Tell me how that affected the Wareham Land Trust, people going out, if you saw any changes.
Well, we really haven't seen a lot of changes, except trying to educate people that they should be using bug spray, and they should be careful, particularly from dawn to dusk when it's dark, with the mosquitoes in particular. The Lyme disease is a whole different thing. It's not necessarily dawn to dusk, it's any time of the day. So that's another issue altogether.
Are you thinking of continue on this discussion, these talks in years to come, making it a tradition?
Well, we'd love to see education as a tradition, and it'll vary from one topic to another on a regular basis. And we'd certainly like to bring something back like this again, whether it's this particular talk or not. We do quite a variety of things. We had a talk not so long ago on native pollinators, and important species that will keep everybody informed and safe and happy, and keep the flowers blooming, and just having a good time outdoors. So.
Well, I hope you learned a lot from the presentation. We also filmed the whole presentation. If you'd like a copy, you can reach us here and we'll make a DVD copy for you. And now we're going to move on to our second featured program, Living Broken, Living with Osteogenesis Imperfecta. Take a look. Today we are visiting a family in Wareham who is living with a rare genetic disorder, osteogenesis imperfecta. For decades, Cheryl has been living with excruciating pain without understanding why. Growing up, her parents misunderstood her discomfort. Your parents dismissed that. They thought,
yep. Okay, I was just faking it. It was in my head, looking for attention because I'm the youngest of 7. So.
It was not until the birth of her third child that the doctors called the whole family to be tested. When she was born, what did they tell you?
Well, they told me when I was pregnant with her to abort her and give her up because she's a burden. She came out. She was born with 16 broken bones additional. So then they asked, was there any other breaks within the family? At that point in time, my son had breaks, but when he had his first break at 2, but they chalked it up to boys will be boys. And my oldest, Savine, she had 2 dislocated hips at birth, but it was not found until later on because I kept calling the doctor because she would scream bloody murder all day long, and I kept telling them there's something wrong with this kid, and the pediatrician kept telling me that I'm just a nervous first-time mother. Well, when she had an ear infection, the on-call pediatrician discovered she had 2 dislocated hips the whole time. So they put her in a brace that she wore for the first year and a half to straighten out, to put her hips back where they need to be.
They were all advised to go through collagen biochemical test, also known as skin biopsy. The test examines collagen proteins made by skin cells and requires a small skin sample. So at that point, you're a grown woman, you gave birth, you still do not know that you have this condition.
No, it takes a long time for the test to come back. I have this dot, I don't know if you can see it, but they take a piece of your skin and they grow it up over a period of time. So it takes about a year for the test to come back.
And after a year, the results read that Cheryl and her children all have been diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder called osteogenesis imperfecta. The actual term, osteogenesis imperfecta, means imperfect bone formation. People with this condition have bones that break easily and often from mild trauma or with no apparent cause. Cheryl was diagnosed with type 1. It is the mildest and most common form of the disorder. It accounts for 50% of the total osteogenesis imperfecta population. So when you got the diagnosis, did you find relief from that, or did that just bring on even more questions?
No, it was relief because I felt like I was crazy my whole life because nobody believed me. So when I finally got the diagnosis, it was like, oh, thank God. You know, I mean, not thank God I had the OI, but thank God there was a reason to it.
Haley was diagnosed with both type 2 and type 3. Type 2 is the most severe form of the disorder. Infants with type 2 usually die within weeks of delivery.
They told me she would make it 2 weeks at birth, if that. Take her home, love her, and that's it.
Mine is extremely rare. There's only, myself included, there's only 6 of us left with the rare type that I do have. And with my type, I'm also a little person on top of having the OI. Okay. So I kind of have different challenges than my sister and my brother.
James was diagnosed with type 1. He has had over 150 broken bones. Life growing up came with specific limitations.
I was younger when I got diagnosed, so I didn't really, it was pretty much, you can only do this, and that's it.
And that's it.
So like, going through schooling, I couldn't do recess, I couldn't do gym, I couldn't do any contact sports, so like they'd have track and field day. I could only do so many of those activities during track and field day.
James's 3-year-old daughter is also diagnosed with osteogenesis imperfecta, type 1, and so far she has suffered through 6 broken bones. What has been the difficult part of living with this condition?
I have to say, part of the problem that you have, because unlike Haley, she's a little person, but with us, we look fine to people.
It's always explaining yourself with this condition. You always got to explain this, explain that, explain this, explain that. Yes, you're educating people.
It's exhausting.
But it's exhausting.
It is. You need a nap after explaining a few things.
What have they said in terms of the progression, especially for you too? What does this mean as you age?
It starts off with when you're younger. It's somewhat slow.
Okay.
Hit puberty, it picks up a little bit, slows down, and then as you get older, it picks back up.
That's what happened with me.
It's like a roller coaster.
What do you feel the condition has taken away from you?
The limitations on certain things.
Yeah.
Yeah. With me, I have COPD now because of it. And I feel like it's taken some of my, like, people, like, they invite you to weddings and they invite you to birthday parties. And, you know, when you say you can't go because your kid's broken or you're broken, and you just feel awful because, you know, you can't get out to do things that other people can do.
Yeah.
What are you guys afraid in relating to this condition?
I don't think there's any more fears anymore. We've lived through them all.
Yeah.
Really, James?
I think there is one fear for me, and that's not knowing when the
for
next surgery or next break's coming. That's probably my fear. Is between me and Mom, we're racking up surgeries. I'm on 27. She's on 27.
They modified their house to accommodate Haley and Cheryl downstairs to minimize accidents.
Okay, guys, so I'm going to show you guys my room. So everything is modified to my size. I have my chair right here, so when I'm broken, I don't just have to sit in bed. I can just sit and still not be in bed. So my bed is lowered. My dad actually had to customize my bed. So my bed is just a steel frame, but they cut the wheels off. It's lower, and I can just sit easily.
Yes, you can get in and out from your bed easily.
Yeah.
And in many ways, Haley is just a normal 20-year-old young woman with friends, interests, and on the quest of finding her footing in the world. Who did all this, Haley? Look at this decoration.
Some of this decoration, actually, I cannot take all the credit.
Okay.
I have to give a lot of credit to my best friend, Greg. He customized my bedroom.
He did all that.
He put
Love
all
and
this-
hope.
Love and hope is something that I say all the time. Because, you know, without hope, you need love. So I do that constantly. And then always I'm blessed. And then over here, you have my Girl Scout awards. I have the 2 highest awards you can get in Girl Scouting, which is your silver and gold award. And then I also have Santa Clara's University business course. So I'm doing that, and then I'll start photography very soon.
Oh, yeah. So tell me about may I see?
Oh, of course.
So tell me about your photography business.
Yes, my photography business, it is going to be called Hot Wheels Photography.
Okay.
But it will be a hobby, not a business. Due to my breaks, it would just be really hard to manage the business stuff, so.
And what do you enjoy about taking pictures?
I just love capturing the moments that, you know, you have with your family. I also have seizures on top of my bone disorder. So I was in a coma for 5 days, not knowing if I was going to live or not. My parents basically got told, you could either pull it or you can, see if she'll live. And thank God I lived through that. But my brain is stuck at a 5th grade level.
What does that mean when, to you, to be told your brain is stuck at a 5th grade level?
It's still kind of crazy to think after all these years what I've accomplished. My brain being stuck at 5th grade and not being able to go past that. I'm common sense smart, not book smart.
But who needs to be book smart?
Right.
There's not enough common sense out there anyways.
Well, my best friends, they're really good at keeping me grounded and relaxed. And they also know when I'm broken, I just need, them right there.
How often do you feel broken?
At least every other month. Right now, I'm still battling a foot break.
Haley has been defying the odds since birth, and her spirit is growing stronger and stronger with each victory. I feel like, I don't feel, but I see this. You are such a positive person.
Try to.
You are just amazing, and it seems that you have made peace with who you are.
Yeah. There was a time I was about 16, and I was going through a really, really bad break, and I kind of didn't know what to do at that point. But my best friends that I've had since 7th grade have always stayed by my side, and the day of the surgery, they all called me at 4:30. They knew I had to be at Boston Children's Hospital at 4:30 in the morning, so they all made sure that they called one in a row of, wishing me luck and knowing that I'm going to be okay. And
what do you want people to know about you, Haley?
That I'm just like anyone else. Even at, 21, I'm still like everyone else. I just have limitations. Nothing has changed me in the past.
Nothing. While the number of people affected with osteogenesis imperfecta in the United States is unknown, the best estimate suggests a minimum of 20,000 and possibly as many as 50,000 people. There is no cure for osteogenesis imperfecta, but there are ways to manage the symptoms. Well, I hope you learned a lot from our featured programs today. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue with more. Well, good morning, Wareham, and thank you for being with us this morning. We are broadcasting live from our WCTV studio in Wareham. This is Good Morning Wareham, your source for local news, weather, traffic, and more information. And now for a moment in history, let's take a look at where we were today in history. So on this day in sports history, the Battle of the Sexes took place in 1973. The tennis match pitted Ms. Billie Jean King against Mr. Bobby Riggs, two of the top tennis players in the world. Mr. Riggs claimed that no woman could beat him at tennis, even though he was well past his prime at the age of 55 years old. 90 million people watched on TV as King beat Riggs, a victory for women as a whole, as it helped to legitimize women's sports. Billie Jean King would go on to win 39 Grand Slams titles in her career. And also today in American history, the first European battle occurred on American soil in 1565. Spanish forces captured a French fort near what is now Jacksonville, Florida, and 135 French men were killed. This attack helped push the French up north and made them focus on the regions that are now Canada. No wonder that's why they speak French, right, in Canada? Okay. Also today in crime history, get this. 16 Amish people were convicted of hate crimes in 2012. So this is just yesterday. Led by a man named Mulet. This group were made up of Amish people who had some differences with other Amish people. To get back to those who they disagreed with, the group forcibly cut the beards and hair of those who they didn't like. Since the hair is held with great regard to the Amish, it was seen by a judge as a hate crime. The leader Mulet got 15 years in prison, while his followers got from 1 to 7 years in prison. Okay, so for today's birthday, shout out goes to Red Auerbach. Born in 1917 in New York, Red was the legendary coach of the Boston Celtics during the 1960s, winning 9 championships with players like Bobby Cousy, Billy Russell, and John Havlicek. Okay. And that's all for today's In History segment. To learn more cool historical facts, you can go online under history.com. Stay with us. The coffee segment is next. We'll be back.
Hello everyone! Welcome back to Wonderful Medicine. I'm your host Noel Wumble, now taking a role not in front of the live studio audience, but behind recorded footage and editing. Today we'll be discussing that which flows through our veins, the rich red stuff, blood. And we'll also learn how carbon monoxide is deadly. Blood is a liquid combination of many different cell types that serve many purposes, including transporting nutrients and oxygen to cells throughout the body, transporting waste like carbon dioxide out of the body, and helping the body communicate with itself via hormones, among some other functions. The average adult has about 4.5 to 5.5 liters of blood in them at any time, which is more than this. You have more than this whole gallon. I mean, this is water, obviously not blood. You can't get that legally, and I frankly wouldn't want it in front of me. But you got more than a whole gallon of blood in you at any given moment. First, let's answer this question. Where does blood come from? Interestingly enough, blood comes from tissue inside of bone called red bone marrow. Bone, though very hard and strong, is actually designed in some parts to resemble sponge, hence why scientists call this part of bone spongy bone. In the cavities created by this spongy architecture lies our red bone marrow, where hematopoietic stem cells are harbored. These stem cells can be developed into any of the cell types that occupy blood, which we'll get to in a second. When we are first born, all of our bone marrow is red bone marrow, but as we grow up, we get a lot of it converted into yellow marrow, which is used for fat storage. Now, let's get into who the players are. Who makes up blood? First, we have leukocytes, better known as white blood cells. This is actually a broad category of a variety of cells that have the job of protecting the body from dangers like viruses, harmful bacteria, and even cancer cells that the body creates. Next, we have thrombocytes, better known as platelets. Platelets are not actually full cells in their own right, but rather small fragments of a much bigger cell grown in the bone. Platelets are part of the body's response to injured blood vessels. They help stop the bleeding. Finally, we have erythrocytes, or red blood cells. These guys help transport that oh so important oxygen to the cells of the body. Now these are some beautiful cells. They have a unique donut shape that helps them increase the amount of oxygen they hold by upping their surface area. Their shape also allows them to fit into the very small capillaries so that their oxygen can be given to tissues when they need it. Erythrocytes are able to carry oxygen thanks to a protein called hemoglobin. Each red blood cell contains millions of these proteins, and each protein has 4 subunits. Each unit has the element iron, which gives blood its red color and is what oxygen can bind to when it's transferred from the lungs to the blood. The red blood cells are able to continuously pick up and drop off oxygen thanks to the flexibility of these hemoglobin molecules. However, trouble arises when someone inhales carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide, too, can bind to hemoglobin, but it doesn't let go as easily as oxygen. So when somebody inhales a lot of carbon monoxide, the carbon monoxide holds onto the blood cells and just doesn't let go. When too much carbon monoxide attaches to these cells, the body is unable to get the oxygen that it needs quickly, leading to death. Since carbon monoxide is a colorless and odorless gas, it is very important, imperative even, that carbon monoxide detectors are installed in your home for the safety of you and your family. Well, I hope you had some fun and learned a little bit here on this week's installment of Wonderful Medicine. I'm, as always, Noah Wumboldt, and I am throwing it back, as always, to the Queen Banda, who will be sitting in this chair once we transition to her.
Well, welcome back. Now it's the coffee segment. We have a live guest in the studio, your favorite selectman, Alan Slavin. Woo!
I'm live?
You're live.
Okay.
So, Alan, I would like us, we're only going to talk, I think, only about 2 articles coming up this town meeting. It seems like only a few. How many articles, warrants are in here?
We have 24.
24. So you said about, what, an hour and a half of town meeting?
Once we get past the usual, procedures, the opening, everything else, it usually takes up to 20 to 30 minutes. From there, it should be an hour, probably an hour and a half, maybe.
Any controversial topics, article this time, you think?
I don't really think so.
No, okay.
No.
Straightforward things.
Yeah, it is. The fall town meeting is basically to pick up on any financial issues that have to be adjusted. And normally zoning articles are usually done in the fall as well. Mm-hmm. And that's how it's supposed to work. Doesn't always work that way. But that's the basis.
Well, speaking, one of the fun articles that I'm looking forward to is article number 24 regarding plastic bag reduction in the town of Wareham.
Well, the article was done by, I think, Norma White, which is a citizen's petition article. So that automatically goes on to the warrant, and it goes before, town meeting. The only drawback to a lot of articles when they're citizens petition articles is that people don't have access to the town as far as town council, et cetera, to see if the articles are, written properly and are accurate or not. There may or may not be a problem with this article. if so, it may have to come back again. Being one of the founding members of Don't Trash Wareham, obviously, the idea of banning plastic bags is, for me, is something I'd be very much in favor of. There are certain difficulties in they have different mill size of the bags people use. It puts some kind of strain on some businesses from a cost standpoint, etc. So, again, it's not just it's okay. There are some holdbacks, but overall, it's a good thing because you go down the roads in Wareham, any town really, you'll see plastic bags blown out of trucks in the back or people throw stuff out. And it's something we need to find that. And they do make some biodegradable plastic bags too now.
I saw them at Stop and Shop. They are selling their own biodegradable plastic bags.
And you have paper, and they have paper that's reinforced now. So when you pick up your grocery bag, the next thing you know, your groceries kind of on the floor, and it's not very pleasant. So it's something we need to look at because whatever we have in plastics now, they don't go away. They stay forever.
It can be done, right?
Can be done, and also you're running out of landfills where you can keep throwing the stuff. So we have to find a way to recycle. And the recycling is another thing that's a problem now because the Chinese aren't taking a lot of stuff anymore, and everybody thinks they're recycling, but when it goes to the particular companies that process, and stuff, they aren't recycling. The stuff's getting either buried or burned or something because there's no place for it.
So what will happen if this article passes during town meeting? What's the next step?
Well, basically, if the town passes the article then becomes, law of the Board of Health, I believe, has powers to implement it and make sure that the stores are not using plastic bags, et cetera, as the article's written. There's a whole piece to this article that's not there that should have been, it will be included in there, which explains, I think, from the Sierra Club, about the type of plastic that you can't use and all the different things. And we'll see what happens. I'm not sure it's going to get actually out to the floor to vote on because I'm not sure whether or not it's written in such a way that it's viable.
Okay.
Which is kind of, yeah, but if that's the case, then Norma White can bring it back in the spring and have it corrected out.
Okay, very good. And we also have, speaking of zoning, we have Article 19 regarding marijuana consumption facilities.
Yeah. Because of, I'm on the board of directors of the Mass Municipal Association, which does a lot of things. It represents all the different elected officials, et cetera, in the state. I think personally, and town council and the rest of the selectmen really didn't agree with me, that we're jumping the gun. This has to do with social clubs. Everybody thinks that, if they approve the social clubs, that automatically they'll come in and start and everything else. Well, if everybody remembers back when we had retail marijuana, the Attorney General and the Cannabis Control Commission allowed any town that wanted to put a one-year moratorium on the hold-up of the retail stores, et cetera, until they did their zoning, et cetera. And I think the same thing would happen. Right now, there is nothing out there that says, if you want, you can put a moratorium because it doesn't exist. The social clubs and the home delivery is something that the Cannabis Control Commission has on their agenda, but hasn't set up any rules, any regulations, or any timeline yet. So, and about a week ago, we're supposed to, I think the House, Senate, and the Cannabis Control, they were discussing these things and decided to put them off again. So what we thought there'd be something coming down, at least for home delivery, didn't happen. And the same thing on the social clubs, which we knew would get delayed again. So we can put the moratorium in there, and then in the meantime, they can put together some zoning on ideas. But they really can't do any of that until, again, there's something in place. Okay. Right now, there's a program for, I think, 12 or 10 pilot program for social clubs, which towns could apply or cities apply to be one of those 10 or so. But again, there's no draft written, and there's no rules and regulations for the pilot program even. So everything is premature again.
Okay. So did they, what are the regulations saying regarding this social clubs? How many can we have?
There's nothing.
Okay, not, oh, really
There's-
nothing,
there's
all
no-
right.
That's why I'm saying we're kind of jumping the gun, I
Again,
think.
okay.
Because there is absolutely nothing.
Is there, if we do have social clubs, is that going to bring any additional revenue to our town or just a minuscule amount?
Well, again, depending on what the regulations are, will there be a host agreement, which there probably will be. How much will we be allowed to charge the 3% like we did with retail? We don't know. We'll be able to work a host agreement for a certain percentage of dollar amount, like with the medical marijuana, which wasn't a 3%. I can't give you an answer because nobody knows. Nothing has been laid out yet. It's like this, we had a Whisk and Jane apply, and they were telling everybody they were going to open up over in West Wareham. You can't do that because there's no rules. There's no way to give anybody a license to operate one of these. So again, we're jumping the gun, I think, but we can vote for a moratorium, but I don't know if it's going to make any difference.
Okay. Well, speaking of jumping the gun, we were discussing about the proposal, the casino proposal, and this is very early on the stage, but I would like us to talk about what is actually here. This group, Notus Group, right?
Yeah, this group actually goes back, the family goes back, the O'Connells, to the Squantum Navy Yard over in Quincy. The family came in and they developed the property next door to the actual marina that's there. And they're involved with the marina as well, obviously. But they did a lot of apartment building and stuff in there. I know of them going way back into the 1970s, probably. Well, 40-some years ago. And they did a very good job and have done a very good job there. They also took over a golf course, I think it was Wollaston or something, but right along the expressway on that Quincy area there, called Granite Links. And they've done a great job there, and they're expanding that. So they have a good history. They're a strong company, and they came to the town and proposed this horse track, casino, recreation area, etc. And they want to put it into a place where there's been gravel and soil removal for a long time. I think it was the Graziano brothers. It's their project, and they wanted to finally stop the gravel stuff and sell the property. You could have 200 homes in there too, just as easily if they sold it. And the problem with this is everybody's again jumping the gun, because this is a very difficult project to actually get all the approvals needed. If you like, I can explain that when the gambling bill came in, the state approved by zones 3 what they call, I guess, Class 1 casinos, which are full-blown casinos, such as the newest one that just opened up, and I think it's Chelsea actually, called Encore. And one what they call Class 2, which is a slot machine, which is what we have in Plainville, which I think is Plain Ridge they call it, if I remember right. We opened up another one recently, obviously in Springfield. This region here has a Class 1 license still technically available. But a Class 1, again, is like what you see up in Chelsea, which is a huge investment, needs a very strong return to make it profitable. And what the gentlemen here have proposed is they want to modify. They don't want to do a full Class 1 because financially it won't work. The numbers don't work, etc. So they want something which is not a full casino. It'd be probably like slots and stuff like that, but it would be a little more than just that, but not what is considered a Class 1.
So how are we jumping the gun on this? Is it the support that from our local government and?
Well, the local government I don't think is an issue, because at the end of the day, the way this will happen is all the residents in Wareham, people who vote, whatever, will have a chance to have a referendum ballot whether they want this or don't want it. So, whether you are for it or not for it, it doesn't matter until the time when we vote whether the town wants it or not. And that's who'll make the decision. I always have a hard time because the majority rules. And I've always felt that who represents the minority. At the end of the day, nobody really represents the minority, because the way the government is set up these days in this country, it's the same as marijuana, and the majority voted yes, and that's the end of the day. So I don't know really how the vote's going to come out. From a financial standpoint for the town, because of the revenue, not having enough revenue. And it's not just Wareham, it's the whole state. And it's probably the whole country, really. We're not getting enough money to keep pace with the expenses. It's not that we're wasting money. It's not that we don't know how to run the government well. I know there's waste everywhere. But the bottom line is the cost, the increase every year exceeds what we are allowed to increase. And you can't keep taxing homeowners, property owners to support, your town. You can't add taxes everywhere to do that because there's a certain limit when people can't afford it anymore. People live in certain towns they grew up in. A lot of them can't, their kids can't live in that town because the expenses and the cost of homes just keep going up and they're just not there. Simple thing like I bought a custom built boat back like in 1990, I forget what it was, some of the 90s. And I paid a certain dollar amount. Well, that same boat today costs almost 8 times more than what I paid for it. If I had to buy that boat today, I couldn't do it.
You couldn't do it. So, I mean, there are perks to saying yes, or if this deal comes to full fruition, the $5 million in revenue.
The projected $5 million, it's not just the $5 million, it's the idea, the problem, if you look at Wareham, we have a thing that says, work, play, and live in Wareham, okay? Well, we can live in Wareham, we can play in Wareham, but we can't work in Wareham because there aren't the jobs that people want. That's why commuter rail is so important because people would love to be able to get into the Boston market area because you're getting paid because of the increased cost of living in Boston. But if you can live down here, New Bedford, Fall River, it makes it that much better financially for you. So the problem is we don't provide the work component. And we try and attract people down here, but it's not easy. So the bottom line is, these jobs, I'm not saying they're going to be high-paying jobs, but there's going to be a whole range of jobs all the way through. And it gives people a chance to earn extra income. And what happens on the town side is $5 million infused in the town of Wareham very simply allows us not just to maintain, but to go back and put services back in. We're going to be looking probably in a year and a half or so, whatever, on trash issues alone. It may end up that, what we have now in Rochester and Marion, those areas, they may close those down because it may be financially not feasible to run them, which means everybody's going to have to contract with a trash hauler. Or the towns are going to, like Marion right now, Marion contracted with one hauler, I think it was ABC, I'm not positive. And in their tax bill is the cost of actually picking up the trash. It started just this month. It may happen here too. And again, there's just, council on aging service, all the things, library, all these things are all issues. And if we want to maintain, we need to find, revenue sources at the same time that don't tax, the base population, because I think we're maximizing where you can go. So this is one of these things where you're basically having to make an adjustment for your ethics, your morals, whatever. Are you willing to accept money from something that not everybody agrees with in order to keep your town not just afloat, but to make things better overall?
Well, we've been dancing with that question for a while now, just talking about marijuana. It was
same thing,
but here we are. And we only have 1 minute, but I remember when even with marijuana, yes, people, though proponents of the deals talked about money, revenue coming to the town, but you said not that much compared to what we are tasked with.
No, it takes, what we need is a substantial amount of money.
Okay.
$5 million is a lot of money.
Okay.
The marijuana stuff is never going to get us $5 million.
Get rid of all marijuana, bring more casinos. All right, so
then the 57% of the people who voted for it would be visiting you personally. They would not be happy.
We are a growing elderly town, so marijuana and casino may be the perfect combination.
Yeah, but we'd like to grow a town where we have a population grow through all different age groups. Having a town or any place that's all skewed one way or whatever really never works well.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Wareham, for joining us this morning. This concludes our morning show. My guest was your selectman, your favorite selectman, Alan Slavin. We talked about a couple of town meetings, warrants that you'll be seeing this October, in addition to this casino proposal.
Also, please ask everybody to come to town meeting.
Yes.
We're going to have electronic voting, which means you can vote and nobody knows how you vote. So for those of you who always refuse to come because you didn't want that to happen, it won't happen.
It won't happen.
So please prove to me anyways that this makes a difference.
All right, if you missed us this morning, this show will re-air this evening at 6 p.m. We will also go on our YouTube channel, Wareham Community Television on YouTube. We will be back on Monday with more. Bye.
Goodbye, Wareham.